all I've heard and all I feel at the moment, all I'm feeling from people, is heartbreak. We had mass at 12 o'clock. There were people, mature adults just openly weeping in the church. So the people are just feeling just full of compassion. So far from anger, it's compassion, it's love, it's heartbreak, it's disbelief.
In Southport on Merseyside, at least 8 people have suffered stab injuries in what police are describing as a major incident. Ben Ellery is crime editor at The Times. Ben, what more do you know?
Well, we believe that there are children involved, sadly, among the casualties. We understand that it happened at a pregnancy antenatal centre where they host baby massage and baby yoga sessions. I've spoken to a man who works next door, and he describes hearing the children's screams. There's incredibly distressing news coming out of Southport today.
Right. I mean, we certainly got that impression, not least from the tone of the message put up on X by the Home Secretary, who said she had been in touch with the police and also congratulated or passed on her thanks to the emergency services. Do you know how many emergency services had to attend the incident?
Yeah, well, we understand there were 13 ambulances and there was a helicopter which landed nearby, treated at least 8 victims, and a major incident was declared at Alderhay Children's Hospital. Details are still being confirmed. So, just quite how serious those injuries are, we haven't found that out yet, but it's obviously a major incident, we're just waiting to hear more.
Have you heard anything at all from the police as yet? Have they told you whether or not anyone has been taken into custody?
A man has been arrested. Initially, people were told not to leave their doors. But now the police have said that, the man that they have is the man they believe is responsible. They've recovered a knife as well. We'll see just what comes out regarding this suspect.
Ben, for the moment, thank you very much. Ben Ellery is crime editor at The Times, and I'm sure you can hear from what Ben was saying. It is, it's early hours after this incident, and only so much information is known. And I'm sure that the police will be updating us just as soon as they can. But I would be speaking for all of you listening that it's thoughts and prayers at the moment, isn't it?
Well, it just doesn't get any worse, really, does it? But Steve Rotherham, who is the Metro Mayor for the area, has been urging people on social media not to speculate and certainly not to share information that they've picked up on some sort of rumour mill, because that really won't help. Now, I'm afraid there has been a horrible incident today. 8 people have been stabbed and taken to hospital following what the authorities are calling a major incident in Southport on Merseyside. Merseyside police said it had reports of a stabbing and were called to a property on Hart Street in Southport just before midday today. The Times reporter Ben Ellery gave us this update a little earlier.
We understand there were 13 ambulances and there was a helicopter which landed nearby, treated at least 8 victims, and a major incident was declared at Alderhay Children's Hospital. Details are still being confirmed. So, just quite how serious those injuries are, we haven't found that out yet, but it's obviously a major incident, we're just waiting to hear more.
Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool says it has declared a major incident. Ben Ellery says the suspect has been detained.
A man has been arrested. Initially, people were told not to leave their doors. But now the police have said that, the man that they have is the man they believe is responsible. They've recovered a knife as well. We'll see just what comes out regarding this suspect.
Well, the Prime Minister has responded to events in Southport, calling them horrendous and deeply shocking. Sir Keir Starmer said he's being kept updated on the situation. And earlier, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, made this statement in the Commons.
I know the whole House will be very concerned at the extremely serious incident that has taken place in Southport. All of our thoughts will be with the family and loved ones of those who are affected. I have been in contact with the Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner and the Merseyside Mayor to convey my support to the police and our thanks to the police and emergency services for their swift and courageous response. The response to this awful incident is currently unfolding, and the House and the public will be updated in due course.
Well, that is Yvette Cooper, and Steve Rotherham, who is the mayor of the region, has also commented on X. He says he's deeply concerned and says he's been in contact with the police, is being kept updated, but he's urging locals to wait for official updates. Please, he says, don't spread unconfirmed speculation or false information.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I respond to the first question, I want to simply say that I know the whole House will be very concerned at the extremely serious incident that has taken place in Southport. All of our thoughts will be with the family and loved ones of those who are affected. I have been in contact with the Merseyside Police and Crime Commissioner and the Merseyside Mayor to convey my support to the police and our thanks to the police and emergency services for their swift and courageous response. The response to this awful incident is currently unfolding, and the House and the public will be updated in due course.
A 17-year-old boy from Banks has been arrested in connection with the stabbings in Southport. It's just been confirmed in the last 15 minutes or so, that 2 children have died in that attack. Police report there's no wider threat to the public, and you heard from the emergency services there just talking about how difficult it was to arrive at that scene. They are trained for this, of course, but how horrific the scene was to arrive at, and of course thoughts with those families who have lost children in this awful incident. Let's go to Constance Kampfner now, who is the Northern correspondent for The Times and is at the scene. Constance, good evening.
Good evening.
So you've just heard there from our 3 emergency services officials confirming, I think the top line on this now, sadly, is that 2 children have lost their lives in this attack.
Yes, and 9 other children have been injured, 6 of which are in a critical condition, and 2 adults are also in a critical condition. So it is a truly devastating attack.
What else did we hear during that press conference? We, of course, heard from all the emergency services, but the police were keen to say that there's no wider threat to the public now, but no hint as to the motivation behind the attack, Constance.
No, nothing yet. We know that it's not being treated as terror-related, and that a 17-year-old young man or boy has been arrested and is in custody. And as you said, the police say there is no wider threat to the public. But people on the street and in the street surrounding were understandably very, very shook up by the events of earlier today.
Yeah, you arrived on the scene, I know, this afternoon. Just tell us what you've been hearing, who you've been speaking to.
Yeah, people heard screams at around 10 minutes to midday. Children and quite quickly understood that something really quite terrible was happening. We have eyewitnesses who saw children bleeding out. One mother who kind of in a panic bundled a bleeding 10-year-old daughter into her car, only to then kind of turn around and drive back towards the ambulances. Understandably, just did not know what to do in that moment, had been expecting to pick up her daughter from what we understand was a kind of Taylor Swift session, on a beautiful sunny day. The last thing that anyone might have been expecting.
Yeah, and just tell us a little bit more about this, because obviously this is why there appear to be so many. 2 children killed, but also 9 others injured. 6 of them in a critical condition. This is the reason why there were so many youngsters who were at the behest of the attacker.
Yeah, it was some kind of yoga and dance workshop, we believe, and just a kind of fun summer's day activity. So all those children were gathered there for that. We have a couple of eyewitnesses saying they saw a man jump out of a taxi and seemed to purposefully kind of head for that address. So again, we don't know anything about motivation. This is just what we're hearing from eyewitnesses on the ground about what happened.
Constance, thank you so much for being with us on the scene there in Southport. That is Constance Kampfner, Northern correspondent for The Times. And there is, of course, a live blog at thetimes.com just updating you minute by minute on the events there, the sad events there. Confirmed that 2 children are dead after that attack, 9 others injured, 6 of them critically. Constance, thanks for speaking to us. Thank you. This is Kate Borsay. It is the evening edition here on Times Radio.
We're now going to cross live to Southport, where Serena Kennedy, senior officer, is giving a police press conference on the incident there.
Great sadness today. I'm here to advise that 2 children have died as a result of the injuries sustained in this morning's knife attack. 9 other children have been injured, and 6 of them are in a critical condition. All those injured have suffered stab wounds sustained during the attack, and 2 adults are also in a critical condition after being injured during the incident. A 17-year-old male from Banks in Lancashire, who is originally from Cardiff, has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder, and is being taken to a police station where he will be interviewed by detectives. My officers were called to reports of a stabbing at 11:47 this morning and at an address in Southport. When they arrived, they were shocked to find that multiple people, many of whom were children, had been subjected to a ferocious attack and had suffered serious injuries. It is understood that the children were attending a Taylor Swift event at a dance school when the offender, armed with a knife, walked into the premises and started to attack inside the children. We believe that the adults who were injured were bravely trying to protect the children who were being attacked. As a mum and a nana, I can't begin to imagine the pain and suffering that the families of the victims are going through at this moment in time, and I wish to send my heartfelt condolences to them. Our specialist family liaison officers are providing support to the families of the deceased children and the children who were injured at this moment in time. And we'll be working with our partners, including Sefton Council, to provide that wider trauma support to those who've been affected by this incident. The investigation is in its early stages and the motivation for the incident remains unclear. However, Counter-Terrorism Police North West have offered their support to Merseyside Police as the full circumstances of what has happened are being established. At this moment in time, the investigation is not being treated as terrorist-related. I would appeal to anyone who's witnessed anything or who has information that could help us, the investigation, to contact us on Crime Stoppers 0800 555 111. And anyone who's been affected by this incident can contact Victim Care Merseyside Service for help and support. Our hub of locally trained staff are here to provide free and emotional support and practical tailored advice to you. You can contact the Victim Care Hub Merseyside on 0808 175 3080.
Let's just recount what we know so far. We had a press conference earlier, of course, from the emergency services. And I think the main headline here is that 2 children have lost their lives in this attack.
Yes, that's correct. This is just, the absolutely most horrendous news. Emergency services were called at 11:47 today and arrived to find a scene of utter chaos. And as police have confirmed this evening, following this devastating knife attack, 2 children are dead and 6 are in a critical condition. And 2 adults are also in a critical condition.
There are so many children, of course, involved in this, Ben, because there was a Taylor Swift-themed event at a dance school, we understand.
So yeah, that's right. It was an event for children in the summer holidays. Very popular. Tickets sold out. We understand there are about 20 to 25 children at this 2-hour event, aged between 6 and 12 years old. And eyewitnesses reported a man arriving in a taxi earlier on in the day and got out, refused to pay for the taxi, and then walked into this centre. And neighbours recalled just this horrendous shouting and screaming and, unimaginable scenes of terror.
Yeah, and look, there's another witness who's been speaking tonight saying they took around 10 girls to safety in a nearby house as it quickly became apparent that there was an awful attack underway. It was the mindfulness of some of those local residents that perhaps prevented an even worse account here. Of course, that is not to deter from the awfulness of this afternoon's events. We know it wasn't terror-related. What do we know about the 17-year-old male, the child, effectively, that has been arrested on suspicion of murder?
So, yeah, that's right. The police are investigating the motive at the moment, but it's not thought to be terror-related. The boy is originally from Cardiff, who's been arrested, and lived in the nearby village of Banks, which is about 5 miles away. And police descended onto that address, armed officers, and cordoned it off at about 1 o'clock this afternoon.
And we don't know a motive for the attack, do we, Ben?
No, I'm sure specialist officers will be looking at, the suspects' phones and computers, and, trying to figure out, what was this person's mental health history. We know we've seen that issue recently in many sort of tragic attacks. So all of those things are going to be looked at intently, and police will be making a decision on charging.
Ben, thanks so much for speaking to us. Ben Ellery there, who is crime editor at The Times.
The Times' Ali Mittib is in Southport for us tonight. Ali, thank you for being with us on an extremely difficult day for the community in Southport, no doubt. Just give us the context. We've been hearing here about a Taylor Swift event at a dance school.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been a very somber day in Southport. As your viewers have just heard, it was a Taylor Swift event targeted for kids being held in a summer school. And a 17-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter and attempted murder after 2 children had been killed and 6 are in critical condition.
And Ali, you've been speaking, I assume, to people in the community there in Southport. What have they been telling you?
So eyewitnesses said that they saw a man wearing a mask arrive at the Heart Space, which is an antenatal centre, in a taxi. They said he then refused to pay, and then he walked into a centre which was hosting the club. Shortly before, nearby locals reported hearing the screams of children. it's been a very somber day here. I think everyone is quite shaken up, given the ages and given the sheer horror that these people have experienced in their communities.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, Ali, thank you for your time tonight. Ali Mitib, who is in Southport for the Times tonight. You can read more from Ali in your copy of the Times. He's on the front page, actually. His dispatch from Southport, "Knife attack on children like a horror movie," is the Times headline tomorrow.
Now, you can imagine the excitement of the 25 children dropped off at a centre in Southport for a Taylor Swift yoga and dance day. It was a holiday club. And then you can imagine the horror as they were brutally attacked. 2 children killed, 9 others injured, along with 2 adults. Comprehensive reporting of what happened in the Times this morning. David Collins, the Times and Sunday Times Northern editor, can tell us more. Morning to you, David.
Good morning.
First of all, let's start, most importantly, with the latest on the condition of the victims. I think I'm right in saying that 6 are in a critical condition.
That's right. So the update this morning is that there's 6 children and 2 adults who remain in critical condition in hospital. Merseyside police are saying that the adults, it looks like, were injured whilst trying to, what they say, bravely defend and protect the children. There's some reports in the newspapers today that those adults might have been the workers who were at this kind of Taylor Swift nursery where the children would be looked after, this kind of summer school, where 2 of the adults were kind of looking after the kids. So they may have been some of those injured. There's also reports of a businessman who works in the building, who heard kind of screams and shouting coming from this dance studio, and he went down to try and confront the knife man, and was stabbed in the leg.
God. It's a really, I mean, you know, I'm stating the obvious here. It's such an affecting story just because of the vulnerability of these children and what has happened to them. What else? The person arrested on suspicion of murder is a 17-year-old male. Do we know anything else about him?
I mean, last night. So, I mean, this is another kind of case of social media going into overdrive and speculation. You know, there's so much on there at the moment about who this person might be. And the fact that, you know, the police have said, they've confirmed it's a 17-year-old. It looks like they were from a village nearby called Banks, which is quite close to Southport. The person was born in Cardiff. That's a detail that they confirmed last night. So was born in Cardiff and at some point has moved to the northwest of England. There is footage that has come out. ITV managed to get some CCTV. It looks like from a house, which is from this village where police went and raided a house yesterday. And there's kind of CCTV of like somebody in a green hoodie pacing up and down outside this house. It sort of matches the description of the attacker at the scene of this holiday camp, where kind of witnesses saw, you know, somebody in a hoodie basically going into the building. So, but apart from that, there's very little at the moment. There's no name that's been confirmed by the police, and as far as we know, the person's still been questioned by detectives this morning, where no doubt they've ruled out terror. So that is one thing. They've ruled out a terror motive. So no doubt there'll be mental health assessments going on and kind of investigation to work out what, if any, motive there was.
David, thank you very much for that. That is David Collins, the Times and Sunday Times Northern editor. You can read more of what David has written about, including the stabbing. Horrendous. My heart just sinks every time we talk about it. It's just absolutely awful.
The Times crime editor Ben Ellery joins us now.
Good morning.
Ben, horrific events yesterday. What's happening in Southport today?
So police are continuing to question the 17-year-old male that was arrested over suspicion of murder. They are trying to establish a motive. We've been looking into the suspect ourselves, and we've established that his parents had fled genocide in Rwanda, moved to Cardiff, and then on where the suspect was born, and then on to Southport. We've spoken to eyewitnesses who've told us about the horrendous scenes yesterday, which saw 2 children die and 9 youngsters injured, as well as 2 very brave adults who were running the Taylor Swift holiday club, and one of whom is still in hospital.
And do we know the state of health of the victims?
So we know that 6 are in critical condition. 6 of the youngsters, and 2 adults are also in a critical condition. One of those adults is a woman we've established called Leanne Lucas, who was running the course, and we've been told very bravely helped protect the children when this knife man came in and started attacking.
Politicians expected to come to the city today?
Yeah, we've been told the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will be visiting Southport, as well as the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and the local MP, Patrick Hurley, has also expressed sympathies with the families.
And is there any idea of what the motive could have been?
At the moment, the only thing the police have said on motive is that that it is not terror related, and there are definitions on what constitutes terror. So they have not they've ruled that out as a possible motive. But as regards to they'll be combing his phones and computers to try and see exactly what it was that drove him to carry out these horrendous scenes yesterday.
He's been detained. Presumably there will be charges in due course.
Yeah, well, if they decide that they can charge, then that'll be happening imminently. Normally someone will be named upon charge, but however, as he is only 17, that won't happen. So depending on when his birthday is, will be if and when he's charged, then the name will be released.
Ben Ellery, the Times crime editor, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Terry, have you spoken or dealt with any of the families so far who've been affected, and if not, are you planning on doing so?
Well, I think it's just unimaginable what has happened, this devastating and horrific attack. And I think all of our thoughts will be with the families who have been affected, the loved ones who have been lost, and the children who are injured. And it's really important that they get all the support they need. I've been meeting with some of the first responders, the emergency services, the police, fire service and paramedics who were there yesterday and who had to respond with great bravery to make sure that more lives were not lost, and I thank them for the work that they did. There is also a serious criminal investigation underway now, but everyone's thoughts will be with those injured children and just praying for them.
You mentioned the investigation, of course. We heard from Merseyside Police yesterday that it isn't being considered a terror-related incident. How do we know that it's not terror-related?
Well, there is a serious criminal investigation underway because this was a horrific attack. It's important that the police pursue every single avenue, and that is what Merseyside Police are now doing. I support Merseyside Police in that work, but it's immensely important that they need to be able to continue that, and they will provide updates. You'll understand that I'm not going to say anything that would cut across their investigation or prejudice that investigation, as I take that investigation immensely seriously into this truly horrific attack.
We're in a bit of a knife crime epidemic at the moment. You can't really go and listen to the news more than a week without hearing about a knife attack at the moment. What's your government going to do to try and tackle this issue and to prevent attacks like this in our communities?
Well, there would be deep distress right across the country as well as here in Southport for this appalling, just truly horrific attack, because it's beyond every parent's worst nightmare. You had what should have been a children's party having fun in the beginning of the summer holidays could then turn into something so devastating. There's obviously deep concern about knife attacks across the country, and that's why the Prime Minister has said that is a moral mission to address this. But I think for today, the issue really is about Southport, and the issue is about the families who have been affected in this case, and all of us praying for the injured children and for the little children who have been lost.
I know we're running really tight on time, but I just want to quickly ask you, Home Secretary, is there anything else you can tell us about the perpetrator? For example, were they known to the authorities?
Well, Merseyside police are leading this extremely important and serious criminal investigation. This was a horrific attack, and they need to be able to get on with that work, and they will provide us with updates. You'll understand that others should not be speculating or commenting in advance of those updates, and we really welcome the work of Merseyside police. But it's also important that they pursue every single angle of inquiry. But I think at the same time, the police officers, alongside pursuing that criminal investigation, police officers are also members of the community. We've talked to first responders today and some of the police officers who were there yesterday and who had to respond. They're also working in the community to support each other and to support the community in the face of something so awful happening.
The dance class was Taylor Swift themed. The American pop star said today that she is at a complete loss following the incident. Well, joining us now is Father Tom Carpenter, who's the parish priest for the Holy Trinity in St Luke's Church in Southport. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Very, very sad moment, obviously, for your parishioners. How are they reacting?
With shock and disbelief. There are people in church who've just been sitting there for hours, not knowing what to do, where to go, where to put themselves.
What sort of community is it in Southport?
It's a very quiet, kind, genteel seaside town. This is somewhere where nothing ever happens, and for something to happen and for it to be so horrific here is hard for people to understand.
What do you say to your parishioners who must ask, how could God have let this happen?
There are no easy answers, and there is no meaning in evil and in wickedness. The meaning that we find as Christians is in Christ, who shared human suffering and redeemed it.
What help does the community need that it's not receiving?
It's very hard to say precisely what help people need, because it is likely to change. At the moment, they simply need places to be and people to talk to. What the effect will be longer term on the mental and emotional state of the townspeople will emerge.
And does it help that senior politicians like the Home Secretary are coming to share their grief?
It will help some people. The Home Secretary has come and laid flowers, as people from the town have been doing. Exactly how, for how long the interest and concern of cabinet ministers will be directed at Southport in the future remains to be seen.
And is the suspect part of the local community? Is he a known figure?
Not from anybody I've spoken to. He's lived in Banks, which is a village about 5 miles away, and which is very remote. So he's not well known locally.
Father, I'm very sorry to say that news has just come through that another child, a third child, has died as a result of the attack yesterday.
Oh, goodness.
Very sad indeed.
Indeed. It's dreadful. We must pray for her.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That is Father Tom Carpenter.
Now, Merseyside Police has just confirmed the names of the 3 girls who were killed in Southport on Monday. They are Bebe King, who was 6, Elsie Stancombe, who was 7, and Alice Dasilva Aguiar, who was 9. We can talk to local parish priest John Hennahan. A very good afternoon from us.
Hello. Good to speak to you.
Well, very good to talk to you, but in such horrendous circumstances.
Yeah.
John, can you tell us just a little bit about your congregation and your community?
Sure. Well, I'm the parish priest at St Mary's and St Patrick's Catholic churches in Southport. So that's the kind of town centre and the north of Southport. And so it's a very big area, and a lot of people live in the area and come to the churches of St Mary's and St Patrick's.
What do people need from you at the moment?
A loving heart, a heart that cares for them. And that's exactly what they're going to get from me and the other priests and ministers around Southport. And so many other people. There's so many people of goodwill who are pouring love down upon those who've been affected by this directly, but all the rest of us who've been affected by it indirectly and whose hearts are broken for those who are grieving.
How can any of us make sense of something like this and keep our faith?
Well, there's no making sense of it at the moment. We're all just shocked. The Archbishop of Liverpool just sent us a message, and in it he said, we're silent, just a little line from this, we're simply silent before the tragic and senseless loss of innocent life. It's quite a striking line from the Archbishop, simply silent. So we can't even begin to rationalise it, because it doesn't make sense. What we can do, though, is love. And we can reach out to the people who've been hurt, to anyone who's traumatised. We can open our churches, our homes, our hearts, and say, I'm here for you to listen and to give whatever I can give. It may be tears in my eyes. It may be a crackling voice. It may be just the ability to let you be yourself and let things out that are hurting you and disturbing you so much. But that can make such a difference to people. And that's what we'll do. We'll just do our best, little as it may seem.
We do get these reports about some anger brewing in certain parts of, it might not even be your community, John, people from outside the community of Southport. There's something building, maybe because of fake news reports about the identity and status of the 17-year-old being held. Have you felt that or heard anything about that too?
No, I haven't heard anything at all. All I've heard and all I feel at the moment, or I'm feeling from people, is heartbreak. You know, we had mass at 12 o'clock. There were people, you know, mature adults just openly weeping in the church. So the people are just feeling just full of compassion. So far from anger, it's compassion, it's love, it's heartbreak, it's disbelief, but it's a desire to be of help in whatever way we can. And sometimes that's just by crying for the family, crying with the family when we hear the stories that are coming out of the 3 little ones who've died and the others who are still critically ill. That's what our focus on. It seems to everybody who come to me, and there's been a lot in the last 48 hours, 24 hours, that's all that they're coming out with, a heartache and a desire to help in any way.
There's a vigil being held later on today. Are you going to attend that?
We've got our own little vigil here at St Mary's. So a lot of the churches will probably open. We've been open all day so that anyone can pop in and light candles. So it's open now. And the church has got display there just to try and help people if they want to come and light candles. Sometimes they find that helpful. And tonight will be open both at St Mary's and at St Patrick's for anyone who wants to come. So it'll just be a time of prayer and space. So, and that's great that they're having a vigil. I think it's the Atkinson, is it? Yeah. But we'll have, many of the churches will open anyway, just in case people in those areas can't get to the centre of town, then they can come to the church if they wish.
Obviously, this is something that affects your community, John, but I think it affects everybody, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it affects anybody with a heart. Just feels absolutely miserable at, you know, the horrendous sense of loss that people will feel for the whole of their lives. And I wonder what advice you might have for the relative strangers, actually, who find themselves deeply affected.
Yeah, well, I think this is something that actually unites us in grief. So whatever creed, or the colour of our skin, whatever church we belong to, or religion we have, or none, we're all human beings. And if you've got a good heart, then you're going to care. and that unites us together. So I would say to all strangers, to those who are distressed, your hurt, your love, your sadness for the family is precious. You might not want to call it prayer, but it could be known as prayer, even if it's without words, just your tears, your compassion for the family, your suffering with them. That's precious. Thank you for the gift of your caring.
John, thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon, and all the best to your community. That's John Hennihan, who is talking to us from Southport.
Such a tragic event, but there has been heroism. There's been incredible bravery in that experience, and I think perhaps as the days go on and we find out more about what happened and who was prepared to go in there and try and help the children, and indeed the teacher who was taking the class, who we know has had surgery today. She was quite badly injured, but she risked her own life to try to protect the children. So, and also it's worth saying that Taylor Swift's fans are a very generous lot, and they've already raised, I think, £100,000. So, I mean, that is incredible. It was a Taylor Swift themed dance session, and Swifties they're a kindly lot. And I think that is just worth noting, isn't it? That people, it's a terrible event, but in the midst of that event, there's been not just kindness, but tremendous bravery. So let's just hope that we are able, over the next couple of days, to give a certain amount of attention to those people who went beyond and just risked their own lives.
So John Hennigan there, local priest, on hand and giving some of the kind of support that no doubt people there, numbers of people there may well need. That emotional, that an ear to hear what they have to say, a shoulder to lean on, just something that you can imagine if you are lucky enough, like most of us, not to experience such an awful thing that you can imagine you might just need at a time like this. And Norman Willis is also there on hand doing, it seems, something to try to help. Norman Willis is Chief Executive of the Southport Pleasureland. And, well, Norman, welcome to the programme.
Thank you. It's Wallace, actually.
Norman Wallace, forgive me for that mispronunciation. Norman, tell me your role now, the role you've taken on and the mission you've given yourself. How are you seeking to help?
Well, the whole community is distraught, but it's impossible to really know how those parents and people directly affected feel. The community in Southport is very close. I won't say everyone knows everyone, but everyone knows someone that knows everyone else. And everyone is coming together to do what they can in this terrible time. We are going to create a fundraiser for the hospitals, Southport Hospital, Formby Hospital and Alder Hey. It's at times like this you realise that you really need these places, and how underfunded they are. So we're going to try and bring the community together to help raise funds for these hospitals that we all need and hopefully don't need in these circumstances ever at all again.
Yeah, again, that's really interesting, Norman. I mean, so you're now set up a system, some sort of way of raising funds, but it's not directly for people who are touched by this. This is about, it's really about bringing people together and showing that you all care about each other and you recognise the support that's on hand. It's doing something as a community. It's that kind of thing. It's doing it together that counts, rather than giving specific support. Yes,
very important to come together and support one another in these times. Southport is a great place to live, work and to visit. As you know, we're a tourist destination and there are still thousands of people coming every day, and the town is very safe. This was an isolated incident in a residential area committed by a 17-year-old, and we're yet to find out why he's done this. But the area is very safe. It's a great community and a great place to live and work at Southport. And we have other things coming up, such as the flower show and all sorts of things that are being prepared now. And, we should say, please, Southport is a very, very safe place to be.
Well, again, it's another important message. And I guess, Norman, just having someone to talk to and someone to listen for a lot of people, that's of such value, isn't it? I mean, have you managed to speak to many of those who were most closely touched by this around that dance class?
No, because it would be disrespectful to try and do that at the moment. They're surrounded by the police and others that are perhaps more in a better place than myself. Although I do know people that are directly affected. So, everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants to do what they can. But what they've got to be careful of is social media and spreading incorrect information. Things have got to be true and correct. And, the spreading of incorrect information on social media can cause anxiety, fear, and create more harm than good.
That is an important point. I mean, it is all too predictable. In some ways, it's absolutely inevitable. But you will see people, I don't know, just gravitating towards an awful thing like this and spreading, as you say, false rumours, just entirely false accounts of what might or might not have gone on. And we're also seeing those, some of them from the fringes of politics, seizing on this and making it, I don't know, an opportunity, a political opportunity. In some ways, it's distasteful to a lot of people, but it is inevitable, Norman, isn't it? Norman.
Yeah, it's inevitable. That unfortunately, that's human nature.
Yeah.
These things happen, and in politics, it just seems to be the way it goes. If there's an opportunity for a photograph or a soundbite of some kind, it happens. But they are human beings themselves, and sometimes they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. So they're all in a very difficult situation. The main thing is caring for the people that this tragedy has fallen upon, and doing the right thing. We've got to do the right thing, whatever that is. And for each of us, that may be something different.
Yeah, but something I gather is going on is vigils. They have already been taking place, haven't they? Can you tell us anything much about that?
Tonight at 6 o'clock, I believe there's a vigil in front of the town hall.
Yeah.
And I'll be there, and I'm sure there will be so many people there because, as I said, Southport is a very tight community. People do speak their mind, which is a good thing, but they also do come together in all types of ways. Unfortunately, this situation is terrible, and hopefully it will never happen again.
Oh, well, we can all agree on that, I hope. Norman Wallace, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
What they're printing is absolute nonsense. They are literally jumping on the back of a bandwagon to get people to click on their website by stoking racial tension.
A fake name is circulating online in connection with the alleged Southport attacker. Merseyside police have confirmed with Times Radio that this is not the name of the 17-year-old suspect. So why is it being spread online?
Obviously, when attacks like this happen, everybody's talking about it, everybody's concerned, everybody wants to know as much as possible. And this is great because it gets people talking. It also has a negative side insofar as it makes it very easy for people to jump on the bandwagon to attract attention towards their website, towards their supposed news channels, towards whatever they want. So the first thing I do when I see information like this is I go looking for the source. And last night the information came up around this supposed teenager called Ali al-Shakati. So first things first, nobody should have that name. And that's primarily because he's 17. And in this country, 17-year-olds are minors. And according to the Crown Prosecution Service, you cannot legally identify a minor until after the process is done, so after the legal process is done. So then we go looking at who does have that name. And the first person I find is this Channel 3 News website. Their Twitter claims they're in the US, their website says they're in the US, but then you scroll through their terms and conditions and you find that they list no jurisdiction. Now in the States, most websites will list their legal terms and conditions saying what jurisdiction, what state they're in, because each state's laws are slightly different. This one does not, which tells me a lot about where they may or may not be. It's highly unlikely they are in the US at this point. Next step is to go and find the journalists. And this website has no named journalists. Another red flag, because most news outlets have actual people working for them. So the next step is their YouTube channel. If you start searching by oldest posts first, you find that 12 years ago, they were posting very, very amateurish videos of a couple of young Russian lads bezzing around fields in cars. And at some point between then and now, it's become Channel 3 News. So we now know that the only place posting this is not a news outlet. It has no named journalists. It's not where it claims to be. It's apparently run by some random Russian lads, and they've got no legal recourse to be using someone's name. All of that together tells you that what they're printing is absolute nonsense. They are literally jumping on the back of a bandwagon to get people to click on their website by stoking racial tension.
Channel 3 now has already amassed nearly 2 million views for their post linking the Southport suspect to the fake name. What is the sort of potential punishments that people could face for reporting on the suspected identity?
It comes down to contempt of court. It doesn't sound very serious, but it carries its own charge, and you can either you or your publication can be fined, and you can also end up in prison for contempt of court if they feel that what you've done has affected the trial negatively enough.
Merseyside Police have provided the following statement. A name has been shared on social media in connection with the suspect in the incident in Southport. This name is incorrect, and we would urge people not to speculate on details of the incident while the investigation is ongoing. Times Radio is awaiting comment from Channel 3 now.
I came here to pay my respects to the victims and families who are going through raw pain and grief that most of us can't imagine. I can't imagine as a dad myself. To get a briefing from the Chief Constable and the emergency services about the ongoing investigation, but also importantly, to have the opportunity to say to those that were responding yesterday from the emergency services, to say a personal thank you to them and to shake their hand, and to say that as Prime Minister, on behalf of the country, we are grateful for what they did. They, of course, say that they will respond, they're professionals, to anything, but there's no pretending that what they had to respond to yesterday was ordinary. It was very, very difficult of them. They were absolutely professional, and it was important for me to come and say simple words, thank you.
You touched on it before, but as a father, does the nature of this incident touch a particular nerve with you personally and with the rest of the country?
I think it touches a nerve with the whole country. It's awful to contemplate what happened, to hear for myself the experiences of the first responders, what they had to deal with. It's really hard to take in for anybody. It's not what any of them came to work for, but of course they're professionals and they deal with it. I think about the families, the friends, the loved ones, those directly impacted, and of course the wider community here. But there's no pretending, I think, that anybody in the country is not untouched by what happened yesterday.
You've talked about tackling knife crime a moral mission for your government. Is anything going to change? Is anything going to happen as a result of what happened yesterday?
I am very worried about high levels of knife crime, and I'm absolutely determined that my government will get to grips with it. But today is not the time for politics. Today is the time to focus entirely on the families who are going through such pain and grief, and on the wider community, and of course a time to say thank you to those that responded yesterday in the most awful of circumstances.